Hi everyone, this is Jason Holland, International Living's Roving Latin America editor. And in this Facebook Live, I'm going to talk to y'all about the best times of year for visiting Mexico, which is where I live. Now, of course, right now there are travel restrictions in place, a lot of shelter-in-place orders, a lot of lockdowns, and this is around the world, including Mexico. But, when we're on the other side of this pandemic, it's going to be time to start traveling again, and I think Mexico might be one of your stops. So let's explore, the best times of year to come down and give us a visit. Now, a little background first. Mexico is quite a large country. It's about 3 times the size of Texas. So as you can imagine, within that space, we actually have a wide range of climates, throughout this vast country. We have everything from deserts, we have rainforests, we have tropical beaches, we have subtropical beaches, we have temperate beaches near the border with the United States, up in the northern part of Baja California, which of course hits Southern California. So we do have a wide range of climates in all these different locations, so that's something to keep in mind. Now, a great thing is that in general, Mexico does have quite a temperate climate throughout the country. So we don't have places where it's freezing cold. We do have deserts, so it does get quite warm. But, wintertime, a lot of people from the US and Canada flock down to Mexico as snowbirds because while it's freezing up north, the weather is great in Mexico. And we'll be talking about some of those locations in just a moment. So first, let's talk about some places where you might say that they have what's considered to be one of the best climates in the world. And let's talk about Lake Chapala. Lake Chapala is the largest lake in Mexico, and it is a very popular expat haven, probably the most popular expat haven in Mexico. It's been attracting expats for about 60 years. So there's a huge expat infrastructure there, a huge expat population. People go there because of the great medical care, the access to Guadalajara, which is Mexico's second largest city, which has an international airport and medical centers. There's great shopping. It's a major city with all sorts of cultural activities. Lake Chapala is about 45 minutes to the south of Guadalajara, and there's a village called Chapala. There's also a village called Ajijic and a few other smaller ones that are quite popular with expats. And a major attraction is the temperate climate. It's a spring-like climate pretty much year-round, so never too hot, never too cold, t-shirt weather all the time. That's one of my favorite phrases. And kind of like the places I like to live, where you can wake up pretty much any day of the year, go outside, and if you're wearing a t-shirt, you're set up for the day because it's not going to get too hot, it's not going to get too cold. So Lake Chapala, pretty much any time of year is a good time of year to visit Lake Chapala because the mild temperatures are there throughout the year. High season in Chapala, though, for snowbirds, people coming up from up north down to Chapala to escape winter weather, is January to April. So if you do choose to visit Lake Chapala and you want to visit in those months to take advantage of the escape of the winter weather, you got to make your reservations quite early as far as a rental place or a long-term hotel reservation because places do fill up quite quickly. Okay, so let's talk about where I live, which is in the Colonial Highlands of central Mexico. We're about 4 hours east of the Lake Chapala area. And it also has a temperate climate. There are some cold days and nights in January and February. May and June are the hottest months where we get up into the 90s a bit. But in general, you're going to be no hotter than the mid-80s, and you're going to be dipping down into the 60s and even the high 50s at night pretty much throughout the year in places like San Miguel de Allende, which is the town I live in, Guanajuato and Querétaro. So this region is called the Colonial Highlands, or El Bajío, if you're in Mexico. And so this is in central Mexico. We're about 4 hours north of Mexico City. So pretty much throughout the year, very comfortable. At night, if you're going to be out, you might bring a light jacket or a sweater because it could cool off a little bit in the evening hours. Now, a great time of year to visit San Miguel de Allende is Dia de Muertos, Day of the Dead, which is November 1st and 2nd. And this time of year is just beautiful. It's not too hot during the day. It's very comfortable during the day and doesn't get too cold at night. Just a little cool, sometimes. So it's very comfortable. Great time of year to visit Dia de Muertos, November 1st and 2nd in San Miguel de Allende. Another great spot to visit for Dia de Muertos is Oaxaca, which is way down in southern Mexico, because it is a very indigenous, heavy area, and people really go all out to celebrate Dia de Muertos, or Day of the Dead. And Oaxaca does have a bit of a different climate. It is more hot and humid in that part of southern Mexico. Now, another great place to visit would be the Riviera Maya, which is on the beach side of the Yucatan Peninsula. Towns like Cancun, Playa del Carmen, Tulum, and if you go further south, Mahahual, for example, which is on the Costa Maya. Now, pretty much throughout the year, depending on where you're coming from, you might consider the weather in this part of Mexico, the Caribbean coast of Mexico, to be quite hot and humid. But if you go from January to April, the winter months, it is a bit cooler. You get more of a sea breeze. You're talking about temperatures in the mid 80s, dipping down into the low 70s at night, so you might even feel a bit of an evening chill, perhaps, in the winter months on the Riviera Maya. But basically, this is the best time of year because, it does cut some of the heat and humidity. It's also the most popular time of year. So again, if you are planning to visit in January to April in the Riviera Maya, you want to make a reservation for your rental condo or hotel in advance to make sure you get the property that you want. Now, somebody's asking, is the Yucatan available to travel now? Places like Playa del Carmen. Basically, the international airport here that you want to arrive in is in Cancun. There are flights available. There are some folks who are traveling down to Cancun. You can actually get some great deals right now on flights and hotels. Area hotels and resorts are gradually reopening, not all of them, but many of them. Some vacation rentals are available. But I will tell you that even though they are easing restrictions in these areas and you will find things to do and hotels open, you really want to pay attention to the advisories out there, because the coronavirus in Mexico has definitely not gone away. We're still kind of in the middle of it. We're still in the deep part of it right now, even as they ease restrictions. I think basically the government and business owners are, desperate to get back to work, basically. So they are, pushing to reopen a lot of areas, probably perhaps too early. So even though technically you probably could come down to the Yucatan and have a nice vacation, I think there's still a lot of risk there. So you really want to be careful. You really want to watch the advisories, really consider your decision to travel, because although technically open, you just never know. So you want to definitely be very careful. Okay, so January to April, basically winter months. Another great place to visit would be Puerto Vallarta, over on the central Pacific coast of Mexico. Tremendously popular resort area, and in good times, of course. Lots of resorts, lots of vacation rentals, lots of great restaurants and things to do. Beautiful area, beautiful part of Mexico if you love the beach, if you love the water, and all that good stuff. And January to April, kind of like the Riviera Maya, is when it's not so hot and humid, because this part of Mexico is definitely hot and humid in the summer months, and even August, September are considered the hottest and most humid months out of the year. So if you go January to April, you kind of cut that heat a bit, and it is more comfortable. Although if you're coming from Canada or the northern US, you might consider it to be quite hot and humid even in January to April. But January to April is kind of like the most pleasant time of year to visit Puerto Vallarta. Also towns to the north like Bucerias, Lo de Marcos, Sayulita, San Pancho, smaller towns that are also very popular with expats. So basically that's the weather in some of the hot spots around Mexico. One last one I will mention is the Baja California Peninsula. At the further southern tip, you have Los Cabos, which is the towns of Cabo San Lucas and San Jose del Cabo. a tremendously popular vacation spot, especially for folks from the west coast of the U.S., because you can actually drive down there, down the Baja California Peninsula in about 20 hours. It is pretty much the desert, so it's very warm and dry throughout the year. I think they only get about 15 days of rain throughout the entire year. And you're going to experience that pretty much throughout the year, although again in the winter months it is a little bit cooler, and that is when a lot of folks come down to visit. A lot of snowbirds come down to condos and hotels and vacation homes that they have in the Los Cabos area. So again, I keep saying this, if you plan to visit pretty much any hotspot in Mexico during the winter months, you definitely want to make a reservation well in advance to secure the property that you want, because they do go quickly, and the ones that are left, the owners tend to bump up the prices. So you want to make a reservation early for your stay. Okay, one last thing, a little caveat. Speaking of holidays and times of year to visit Mexico, basically spring break, Semana Santa, April, is it's party time in Mexico. People get off work, people go traveling, local Mexican families, people go to the beach especially. They go to the beach all over Mexico. Pretty much everywhere you go, a beach town. Their high season, their time they make a bunch of money to last them throughout the year, whether it's a restaurant, a shop, a hotel, a resort, vacation rentals, whatever, is Semana Santa, spring break. You know, the kids are off school, and just like the US, people head to the beach. They head off on a vacation. So these beach towns will be packed. We're talking every place in town is booked, every restaurant is packed. You can't even put your towel down on the beach because there are so many people. Places like Puerto Vallarta, Cancun, Playa del Carmen, Tulum, smaller towns like Sayulita, you know, places like Los Cabos, all these places get packed with national Mexican tourists as well as international tourists as well. People from all over the world come to Mexico this time of year. It is pleasant because the weather is great. You're in the middle of those winter months. The weather's going to be great, but it's going to be super crowded, and it might not be a great time, especially if you don't like crowds, especially if you don't like being around a lot of people. It could be a bit of a hassle. So just keep that in mind when you're booking your trip. That Semana Santa, that time around Easter, is very busy in every Mexican beach destination, so you might want to avoid that time of year. Okay, so basically, you know, as I mentioned, Mexico is gradually reopening to tourism. It's a slow process. They're still kind of feeling out what's going to work and what's not. Also, coronavirus cases are spiking right now in Mexico. We are definitely not through this pandemic in Mexico, so it might not be the best time to visit. You want to, you know, consider carefully if you're planning to fly down or drive down to Mexico. In fact, right now the border with the United States is closed to driving traffic, and because of the coronavirus. So keeping all that in mind, you know, maybe just plan a trip for the future when we get on the other side of this pandemic, just for everyone to stay safe. And definitely at International Living, we're keeping you updated on the situation on the ground in Mexico and in all the other countries we cover with regards to the coronavirus and future travel and all that good stuff. So this is Jason Holland, the IL Roving Latin America editor. Hope you found this useful, and please, if you're watching the replay of this, go ahead and post your questions in the comments below. I'm going to be checking this post over the next several days to see if anybody had any questions, had any feedback, and I'll get back to you as soon as possible. Okay, so thank you very much. Talk to you soon.